Welcome to the History of the Batman with Londyn, brought to you by Meltdown Comics and Collectibles in Hollywood, California. This is where we relive the defining moments of one of the most iconic figures in comic, art, and literature, the Batman. My name is Adam Silverstein, and as always, I am joined by Londyn. From the shadows, we are joined by that mysterious voice known only as Shadow Adam. History of the Batman with Londyn is produced and engineered by Mason Booker. Mason, in the house. Londyn, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling better. I was a little under the weather, so sorry about last week's episode that didn't air.
Now, did any fans reach out and say, "Where were you?"
A couple.
Oh, those caring fans. Well, thanks for tuning in. And so that means you had an extra week to prepare.
Yes, I did.
And what are we going to talk about today?
Well, in light of the newest Batman crossover between DC and IDW Publishing, Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, today we're going to talk about 5 essential Batman crossovers that any Batman fan should read. Okay,
so you can define crossover as how? Or how are you defining crossover?
I'm defining crossover as, first of all, an intercompany crossover, which means DC Comics and their property is crossing over with another publication. And most, I believe, of the 5 that we're discussing are between, well, except for one, are like DC and Marvel Comics crossovers or DC and Image Comics. So it's 2 different characters from different universes or different publications coming together in one book.
Okay. So to be clear, this is not a Batman Superman.
Right.
Batman Wonder Woman.
Right.
Which would be DC crossovers.
Exactly.
We are talking about 2 different publishing companies.
Right.
With their characters bringing their world into the Batman.
Exactly. It isn't like, if from sure a future episode we'll do Brave and the Bold issues where Batman teams up with another person within the DC universe, and we would talk about that. This is from, and I think these crossovers, I like them because you get to see one character, whether it's Batman or Superman, team up with a completely different character, and you see how they clash and how they work together, and you get to learn about their separate identities even more when you have to deal with another person.
And I think also when you think about these kind of crossovers that you're going to be talking about, they are the ultimate fantasy for comic book fans.
Right.
I mean, I remember as a kid, I would love to see Spider-Man versus Superman or, the Hulk versus Batman, something. And that's why I was so excited you could have the toys and you play with the toys and they could meet. But you never saw that. You always were, why aren't they together?
Exactly.
But in fact, companies have come together to satisfy the fans' fantasy.
Right. And there are many crossovers that people want to see that haven't come into comics yet. But there's so much time and who knows. But there are tons of different crossovers. And crossovers were more popular, gained huge popularity in the late 70s through like the 90s. So those will be the ones we'll focus on more. Mm-hmm. But I think in the future down the line, especially with the Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that we'll see probably more crossovers. And the one that I would love to see still is Batman and Iron Man, because they haven't done an official crossover of that yet. But since people like to pair them up all the time just because they're billionaires and they have all the tech and everything, I would be interested in seeing
I wonder if that's
like
a recent phenomena, because obviously Iron Man for so long was not a premier Marvel character.
It didn't happen until the movies, until Robert Downey Jr. came and made Iron Man the phenomenon it is now.
Yeah, now everyone wants to see him in Batman, I guess. I do know that Batman teamed up with Daredevil one time.
Yes.
Did that make the top 5?
It's an honorable mention.
You did that just for me.
So, speaking of Iron Man, what did you think of the Civil War trailer, Adam?
Yes.
Oh, man, I loved it.
Yeah.
I was thrilled. You?
It was awesome.
What side are you on?
the side of a good movie. I want it to be something that is quality. I want it to be in the same vein as Winter Soldier, because to me that is one of my favorite superhero movies, and I think that if the Civil War can build on that, then we're in a good spot. But if it goes a little Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, I'm not going to be as happy. So I'm more the fan of the finished product than picking a side. But I guess if I had to pick a side, I mean, of course I think I got to go with Captain America.
Yes, me too. And I think I know Shadow Adam is going for Iron Man. Of course.
You rule follower.
So
which is good. We need it. A little bit of both, right?
Right. I love both, but if I had to choose, I would choose Cap.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I did feel like it was, I read the stories, and I always thought that I could understand both sides really well.
Right.
And so it was very hard to kind of pick a side, but because I thought they both I thought Captain America acted a little irrational at certain times with his with his beliefs. But I also do like Captain America, and I think he's got a major point.
Yeah.
I'd hate to, but I guess the bottom line is this. If you've got super-powered individuals running around your town, for the everyday person, you might want a little protection.
Right.
And hopefully there would be some laws in place to take care of that. You can't hope that they're all going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do believe that the trailer was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask you a question.
Yes.
DK3, what'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the storyline, which I was kind of weary about.
Yeah.
But the art really stepped up from, if we're going to look at DK2.
Right. And we had that conversation last time.
Right. And I don't think I should spoil it. I'm not sure, but I definitely recommend it. I think it leaves the reader wanting to read the next one. It's not kind of where you read it and you're like, oh, I'm just interested. I think it's between Brian Azzarello and Frank Miller that the writing and how the story progresses already, and you have the mystery of Batman and what's happening to Bruce Wayne, and all of those questions are kind of answered at the end, but it still leaves you wanting more. So I do recommend reading issue number 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say the fan response has been based on your viewing of what's been going on?
Some people say that they didn't like the kind of Hank Clifford type of story, but overall, I said people say that it's
Hank Clifford or cliffhanger?
Cliffhanger. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm just like, what's a Hank Clifford?
Hank Clifford.
Sounds like a hangnail. Anyway.
But people said that they enjoyed it overall, and that sometimes the writing was so-so, but overall that they would keep reading it. So far positive.
So far positive. On a Rotten Tomatoes scale, what would you say the percentage was?
I'd give it like 80.
Okay, 80%.
Yeah.
Good.
I think it was good.
I have it on my to-read pile. Which,
okay. Is your pile high, or is it?
No, I'm going to get to that. I bought it last week, and I just haven't opened all those comics yet. It was holidays. I had family.
Of course.
Anywho.
Oh, speaking of holidays, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was great. Kids were having fun and did a turkey bowl with them. So no real superhero inspired themes going on, except we are starting Star Wars. So we're going to watch it all up until we get to the premiere. So
we'll probably do that too.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's required viewing for America.
Yes.
All right. Crossovers. Batman crossovers. Essential. Are you giving me in top order? Are you just randomly giving them?
It's going to be in chronological order. It starts from like the first and
okay.
Yeah. But there are tons of crossovers that didn't make the top 5, but it's so hard to pick the top 5, first of all.
Right.
But I wanted it to fit inside the show because we can go on and on and on. And I think these show a great dynamic between Batman and whoever he's fighting or having to team up with, and it gives a good variety of the different types of crossovers, because I feel that in a lot of Batman comics, for most of them, he's alone or he's with Robin, or it depends on the story. He may be with the Justice League, he may be with other Batman family members, but it's always interesting to see him with Marvel characters or him with people that are outside of the universe that he's used to. And you also get to see Batman usually in his own element, and for most, if not all, of the stories, you see the trait that Batman is very territorial of Gotham or wherever he's fighting. So it always, usually the formula is when someone comes into his city or he has to go to their city, there's a small clash, but they come together to fight for the greater good.
That is usually what happens.
Yeah,
right?
that's usually the formula, but with the different characters, it makes it all the more exciting.
Which is, even though it's pretty cliche at this point, I mean, that is ultimately how most superheroes introduce themselves to each other anyway, whether they're in the same universe or not. It's, hey, you're another superhero. Let's fight. Oh, wait, we're on the same side. Let's team up.
Exactly.
So we're going to see that theme even in the intercompany crossovers?
Yes, definitely.
All right.
And I guess even before we start with the Batman one, we have to note that in the mid-70s, like 1975, the intercompany crossovers kind of began with DC Comics and Marvel Comics coming together. And interesting enough, the first unofficial Marvel DC crossover was a book that came out in 75 that was The Wizard of Oz, which is interesting. But
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we start getting into the superheroes, which that started with Superman and Spider-Man. They were the first big DC Marvel team up. And once that became popular, they did one in, I think, 76, and they did one in 1980, and it was Superman and Spider-Man. And then there was a series that was the DC Special Series, and they had several different crossovers. And the last one that came out in issue 27, I believe, was between Batman and the Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
And I know even today, people have that. You have Batman versus Hulk. They have Batman versus everything. If you look on Comic Vine, especially, if you want to know a versus challenge, you can find it. And I know many people say, well, the Hulk is the Hulk. He's the strongest. But this fight did happen, and it was within continuity. It wasn't, and that's another thing. Our crossovers that we'll talk about today, the 5 essential, aren't Elseworlds, because some crossovers were considered Elseworlds, but I wanted to keep it within the continuity.
Really?
Yeah.
There's intercompany crossovers that are
considered Elseworlds.
Yeah.
Oh,
right. No.
But that are considered within continuity.
Really?
Yes.
And you're going to go over those ones?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, well, that's exciting. I didn't realize that was a stipulation.
Yeah, well, some of them are. Not a whole bunch, but most of them are just considered, they're just within the continuity. They're not considered outside of a different Earth or something. So.
All right. So are we ready?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then real quick, before we get there, I'd just like to give a shout-out to the Voice app, VOIS app, which is application. But it's a very cool first live streaming interactive voice conversation app. And I think we're going to start using that in the future.
Awesome.
To start getting some interaction with fans live.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, and they can actually contribute to the show. So we can get them on the app.
Right.
They can then talk to us as long as they download the app. And it's available on iTunes
Okay.
or the iStore or what iTunes store.
That sounds awesome, especially since for like lists like this,
Right.
where I only talk about 5, but they can call and say, "Well, what did you think about this
Right.
one?" And
Or they
yeah,
could call and yell at us.
exactly.
And then guess what the cool thing about this app is? We
What?
can just knock them out. So they better call up and be nice.
Be nice.
Yeah. So we just like to shout out our friends there and tell all the fans to, download that app, get ready, and what will ultimately happen is we can record the show
Okay.
while we've got fans listening,
Yes.
and then we can play it later still. So the
Nice.
fans, if they can't get on while we're on,
Mm-hmm.
they can listen to the show later, but we will have an opportunity for fans to actually interact with us live.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And you know how we did that last interview with Kelly Jones where we had to get him on the phone?
Yes.
And it was really hard to make sure the phone was getting the right signal?
Mm-hmm.
The voice app takes care of all that.
Oh,
All right?
that's awesome.
So we're going to be
Yeah.
able to take care of our listeners, our contributors, all through voice. So VOIS, and it's by Voice Spot, VOIS.
Nice.
POT.
I love interacting with listeners.
I know
and
you do.
scholars, so that's really
Right.
exciting.
And then they could call up or get on the app and then tell us, Londyn, I hope you feel better. I don't want you to miss another week. All right. All right, so let's go with crossover number 1 in chronological order. Is this in continuity?
Yes.
Okay, give it to me.
is.
What is it?
This one is from DC Special Series number 27, and it came out in September 1981, and it is Batman versus the Incredible Hulk. It was written by Len Wein, who for many is known as the creator of Wolverine. So it's a big Marvel writer. And then it was illustrations by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, which I love his art. So it's a brilliant look. The panels and the pages are beautiful, just if you're a fan of his work. But the story goes that Dr. Bruce Banner is working at Wayne Tech, so you already have that connection between Batman and Hulk in a way, or to the two Bruces, I suppose. And he is trying to cure his disease and stop from turning into the Hulk, because if you're a Hulk fan, you know that internal struggle, that dual identity is always popping up within Hulk tales. And what ultimately happens is that Joker is trying to get this formula, and he joins in with the Shaper of Worlds. So, of course, another part of the Batman crossover formula is that you'll have one foe that's on Batman's side, and then another that's on the Marvel, the Image, or whoever's side. So we're dealing with Batman and Hulk versus Joker and Shaper of Worlds. And they have this they have this formula that Hulk is working on, and Joker, of course, is using it for bad. And ultimately, he angers Hulk. He angers Bruce Banner, and it turns him into Hulk, and he wants him to fight Batman and ultimately kill him because, well, the Hulk can kill almost anybody. And so the Batman and Hulk duel, and Batman dodges his punches, and ultimately Batman defeats Hulk by knocking him down and then giving him a sleeping gas, and he passes out. And so then he's able to calm him down, and they both go up against Joker and Shaper of Worlds and save the day. So I've posted about this before on my blog, and of course people are like, "Oh, that's not fair," or other people say, "Yeah, Batman could beat anybody." And of course, I always love to refer to my myth of the Batman God complex.
Yeah, we talked
but
about that.
This fight isn't, of course, on the list because Batman wins. So it's always nice to see Batman use his other skills. His martial arts is fine, and
Right.
and all of that, but his
intellect.
Yes, his intellect, exactly.
Now, by the way, the art is amazing.
Yes.
And it is the classic Batman.
Right.
And it's the classic Hulk. And
Yes.
I think when people think about these characters, or at least maybe over a certain age, that these are the depictions of the characters that really ring true,
Right.
and it capture the soul of each character.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking right now at the cover and at some of the panels, and listeners, you should check it out because this is
even the cover by itself. They're both charging to each other.
Hulk's about to throw some computer panels at him.
Right. And what's great is the Joker's kind of in the background laughing.
Now, I know you might have said this, but I think it went over my head. How did the world collide? How did Hulk get into the DC universe, or what universe were they meeting in?
Well, as Bruce Banner, he was working at Wayne Tech.
Right. Okay, so he just got a job as Bruce Banner in Wayne Tech, who had been dealing with the Hulk?
Right.
So when you say it's in continuity, then how's that possible? Because didn't Bruce Banner have a whole existence before that was outside the DC universe?
Right, he did. I mean, in Marvel universe, right. So I think just to make it work, to make it kind of not seem so random, he, in a way, got into Wayne Tech, and he used something to help him try to regulate. So I think it's more a plot device, in a way.
But he wasn't transported from one universe to another. So he just all of a sudden, Bruce
got to Gotham.
Okay. All right. So,
travel to Gotham.
And DC considers that in continuity?
Yeah, it's in continuity, which is why, So I don't know if that was more just to...
How do you know that, by the way? How do you know that's in continuity?
Oh, I read an article about it, and it said it was in continuity. It wasn't an Elseworlds or that whole series, that DC special series.
Right.
All the different heroes crossed over, and it's considered... It's not out of universe.
Right. So it's the DC stance on that.
Right.
And they just merely put, Bruce Banner in Gotham.
Right.
He exists and has been dealing with the Hulk, even though in the DC universe the Hulk only appeared that one time.
Exactly.
Okay. A little confusing, DC.
Yeah.
But
I think with these they tried to make it seem like it can fit, but
well, listen, in theory it should fit.
In theory.
Did you ever play HeroClix?
No.
Shadow Adam, you ever play HeroClix?
No, I don't know what that is.
You don't know what HeroClix is?
No.
Oh my gosh. Do you know, Londyn?
Mason's looking at me like.
You don't know what HeroClix is either?
What is
it's it's the game where you have the little collectible figures that have attributes like speed, strength, damage, and you roll dice and you count the dice up according to the attack and the defense. They're little plastic pieces. You move them above. It's like chess with superpowers. And they're little figures. Seen
that
this?
That sounds awesome.
It is the best game. I used to play this all the time. And the coolest thing about it is that you could interact, because they had DC, they had Marvel, they had Image, they had all these other characters and figures, and you could play them together.
Oh, wow. That sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
I want to play.
You've never played this game?
No.
As much as you know, I'm amazed what you don't know sometimes. And you too, Shadow Adam.
I'm bad.
Shame on us.
You guys would love this game. I mean, it is ultimately one of the most time-consuming games. But to have your characters be able to team up and to interact with one another in a way that you're making it happen is really cool.
That does sound really cool.
Yeah. I'll have to bring some of the figures and show you.
Okay.
All right. Are we done with Hulk and Batman?
Yeah. So that was technically Batman's first intercompany crossover.
Okay.
So, and it was against the Hulk, and technically he won. So, of course, everyone uses that example as Batman being the greatest, blah, 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 blah. All that good stuff. But yeah, that's our number 5, and we're going just in chronological.
All right. So number 4.
So number 4, after that crossover in that series, the DC Special Series, the idea of intercompany crossovers became really popular. It brought in more revenue and more readers, and so they continued that into the 90s. And I think within the publication history for especially DC, the 90s had so many different crossovers. And that's what I kind of miss about, especially when New 52 started and all of the modern comics. You don't see those crossovers anymore. You don't see DC and Marvel. I don't know if it's because the publications just wanted to be separate. I'm not really sure. I'm sure that's an outside of comics deal. But if you want crossovers, all the good ones are really in the 1990s. And I think one of the last ones was... Actually, the last one was like in 2008, but we'll talk about that later.
That made the list.
No.
No, okay.
I'm telling you, I picked 5, but there are so many that I do want to mention that we aren't going to go into full detail over.
All right.
But just talking about when crossovers were popular, I think around 2008 was the last intercompany one that we see until we get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one, which is why I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
So we're...
And by the way, that Mr. James Tynion is going to be signing at Meltdown.
I know. I'm so excited.
So if anyone's in
it's
the
December
neighborhood...
December 9th, right?
Right.
Wednesday.
Let me double check that. But you should, if you're in the neighborhood, come down, get your Ninja Turtle Batman comic signed by the writer.
Yes.
And I did hear that he's also going to appear as a guest on our show coming up in the next couple, maybe in January, I think, because he's super busy.
Because he's busy, I'm sure, especially with the book coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so exciting.
Yeah, you are right. It's December 9th, 7 p.m. here at Meltdown, 7522 Sunset Boulevard. James Tynion IV at James IV on Twitter. So come and say hello. Yeah, I am very interested to see that, and I think we briefly talked about it. But anyway, let me not get sidetracked. Let's go to number 4.
Okay, our next one is from 1991. So we have about a decade in between Batman versus Hulk, and it is Batman Judge Dredd, Judgment on Gotham. So already off the bat, Judge Dredd is a very violent character, I would say. So just the fact that both Batman and Judge Dredd are crossing is interesting, just dealing with the morale of it all. But it was written by Alan Grant and John Wagner and illustrated by Simon Bisley, and they both are Judge Dredd, he has to go to Gotham, and of course Batman, like I said, Batman is very territorial of Gotham, and he doesn't, just right off the bat, doesn't like Judge Dredd's methods. But he has to, first Batman fights in Mega City, and he meets Judge Dredd there.
Now, is this in continuity too?
Yeah, I don't think it's considered an Elseworld.
Interesting.
So it's more Batman has to travel to one city, and he meets him, and then they are dealing with Judge Anderson, and they have to deal with the dead man. And
for those of you who don't know, Judge Dredd is what? I mean, he's a part of a group of judges that administer justice.
Right.
And they're British. It's a British comic.
Yes.
And they're violent in their administering of justice.
Right. That's the main thing. That they're, in a way...
That's a very brief synopsis.
Right. Very brief, but I think it covers mostly what... and so even though Batman in his way can be violent and is a vigilante himself, the judges and Judge Dredd go definitely over what Batman would consider okay for his vigilantism, and he returns to Gotham, and then he finds Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson following him, and this is through some type of dimensional gateway, which that wasn't even explained when we looked at Batman and Hulk.
Right.
So it's at least it gives some type of background as to how they traveled from one city to another, and Judge Dredd has to fight kind of a scarecrow in a sense, and he has to go up against Batman and Judge Dredd, and they all team up to defeat him and Judge Anderson from all. So Batman and Judge Dredd, and then they have to fight against Scarecrow, who is putting fear toxins all over the city, and they have to fight against different villains, and they come together. And even though Judge Dredd and Batman kind of don't like each other, and Judge Dredd sees Batman as the worst vigilante, actually wants to take him back to be trialed for all of the so-called crimes against people in Gotham City he's done. But of course, Batman doesn't really, he doesn't agree, and he stays in Gotham. So they already end on bad terms, but they continue this story 2 years later in 1993, and it's called Batman, Judge Dredd, Vendetta in Gotham, and it's still by the same creative team, or written creative team, of Alan Grant and John Wagner, and it's illustrated by Mike Mignola and Cam Kennedy. So the art already is spectacular, because I love Mike
you like
Mignola.
Mignola.
I do.
I was going to say and comment on Simon Bisley's art for this. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yes.
And the way he, with his shadows and his structure of the body and the face and the wrinkles and the cape and the I mean, this guy really nailed this comic.
Right.
And
Tons of movement, and it looks
like Mike Mignola did the same thing.
So Judge Dredd and Batman will come together once again, and they have to save this group of kidnapped children from a Batman rogue, the ventriloquist, and Batman and Judge Dredd, they work together, and then once the children are saved and ventriloquist is caught, Judge Dredd and Batman, they kind of say their goodbyes, and they go back to their regular cities. So they still don't have that much of, well, they have enough respect for one another to shake hands and go their separate ways, but Batman doesn't like his way of fighting, and yet Judge Dredd still thinks that Batman should be apprehended from the crimes that he did to others in Gotham. So that's one pair-up that clashes even throughout, having to come together and save people from Scarecrow and save people from the ventriloquist. And I think just the biggest thing is that they're both violent in their own kind of way. They both have their own thing of saving the city, or their own idea of saving the people in the respected cities. So it's a good read, and the art, like we said, is wonderful, especially if you, and I love Alan Grant's writing. So I would, any Alan Grant fans, if you're looking for a crossover, this is definitely one to check out.
Right. And it's always neat to see Batman's vigilantism measured up against another.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's really hard to say, and it brings a lot of questions into, or up with regards to, well, you punched a guy, but you didn't punch him hard enough. Or you punch a guy too hard, and I don't like that. You know, because that's really what it is. They're both kicking people's butt.
Right. They're both violent in their own way.
Right.
And it's interesting to see Judge Dredd, who is kind of a vigilante in a sense, whereas if you look at Batman and Superman, where he has all these powers, and it's just, you get to see Batman kind of teamed up with people that are on his level in the ways of not having superpowers or having certain martial arts skills, or all of the things that we love about Batman with being a non-powered being. You see that with others, and you see kind of how they mix and match and how they tango with each other. So
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Another one. And by the way, Hulk versus Batman and Judge Dredd versus Batman, are these available?
Yes,
I mean,
I know that there's
aside from coming to Meltdown, how are they online? I mean,
yeah, they're online. I know that they both are in trade paperbacks.
Okay.
I think if you look for the Batman and Hulk one, if you don't want to go to eBay, and even though on eBay it's not really that expensive, but you can look at the whole DC Special series, which I think is a full trade paperback. And then both of the Judge Dredd books are together, Batman, Judge Dredd. So if you want to read both of those comics, they're together in a collector's book, which most of the stories, I think all of the stories, you can buy them either Amazon, eBay, or you can go to your local comic shop. And if your local comic shop is Meltdown, of course, come by and see what they have. Because I've seen a few of the books that we're going to talk about today here at Meltdown. So I know that they're available, but yeah, Amazon, eBay, you can get trade paperbacks. If you try to get the comic, it depends, but all of these really shouldn't be that pricey. It shouldn't hurt your pocketbook. So.
Okay. What's number 3?
Number 3, I really like this one. It is Spawn and Batman, and that comes out right after the last Judge Dredd Batman. It's 1994, and it's written by Frank Miller, who we talked about a lot our last episode.
He wrote that one?
Yeah, he did.
I didn't know that.
And the art is by Todd McFarlane, who created Spawn. And it was between DC Comics and Image Comics. So it's a great series. And Batman, he doesn't stay in Gotham. He actually travels to New York, which we'll see another time in our next comic. And he's there to investigate a series of murders he may be connected to one of his rogues in Gotham. So he goes to investigate. And he realizes that the killer is cutting off the heads of the victims, and it's used with some type of high-tech weaponry, which he wonders if it's from his own lab or Wayne Enterprises in some way. But while he's investigating, he meets Spawn, and they automatically have a series of battles because Batman thinks it's Spawn who is doing this, and then Spawn thinks it's Batman. So initially, they just fight, and the battle itself is visually stunning. I really think they both their brawl is awesome.
Right.
But then they realize
Todd McFarlane's art at that point was at his height.
Right. His total.
Right. He had just gotten done with his Spider-Man series, started Spawn.
Right.
Was in a groove.
Mm-hmm.
Teams up with Frank Miller, and boom.
Yeah. I think that in that team up alone,
right? That's
the creative team up.
That is a nice crossover,
right? That by itself is awesome. And once after they kind of beat each other up a little bit, they realize that they aren't either of the enemies, and that they should come together to, even though the relationship is kind of shaky and they don't really trust each other, they should come together and fight and try to stop this killer. So. It's funny because this one is more seen within the Dark Knight universe. So it's on Earth 31. So in the Dark Knight universe, there's his 86 book, Batman the Dark Knight Returns. And then later, after this book, we'll see the Dark Knight Batman the Dark Knight Strikes Again, which came out in 2002. So that's it within the Frank Miller universe. So technically, this could be considered not a regular continuity story because it's on a different Earth.
Got it.
So, and that's the joy of Frank Miller writing Batman. And so we have Batman and Spawn, and they team up together, and they both come back into a story in 1994, which is just a few months after this one, and it's called Batman Spawn War Devil. And
that had some stars.
Yeah.
That wrote produced that one.
Yep. They had Doug Mensch and Chuck Nixon and Alan Grant, so they all came together with Klaus Janson, which Klaus Janson, as you know, is the artist for Dark Knight Returns. So once again, they come together, and what's interesting is Batman and Spawn still don't really click, but they still come and...
Did they remember each other?
Yes. And that's what usually happens with a lot, like one that we'll talk about soon. I'm pretty sure, Spider-Man's our next one. But even in that one, there's usually 2 books. Each are one-issue series or one-shots, but they usually have 2 stories and they come together. So Batman and Spawn is another crossover, and that's also in a trade paperback. You can look it up. It's Spawn Batman or it's Batman Spawn War Devil, either one. And
do you know if those were produced one on one on DC and one on Image?
It was more Image.
Okay.
Yeah, it's under Image, but
both of them?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so. And then the DC is on there, but I think Image was the one that produced it. So yeah, I think, and like I said, looking at Batman with other heroes, especially ones that are kind of violent in their own nature, it makes it, I guess it's the ego or the testosterone or just the territorial thing or thinking that, well, I am the better hero. They clash and they fight, but in the end, they come together to right whatever wrong is in their city.
There you go. All right. You already teased with
I
Spider-Man.
did.
So I guess that's number 2.
Yeah, that's number 2. And
I assume there was a Batman Spider-Man and a Spider-Man Batman.
yes.
Oh, there was. Okay.
I mean, there's 2 books that have these 2 together. And so it's interesting to see that. I mean, Spider-Man, for not just Marvel, but I think one of the most popular superheroes ever is Spider-Man. And then that goes along the same for Batman. So seeing them both come together, and I have people ask me all the time, do Spider-Man and Batman come together? And they're always so excited to know that they actually do have a book or they do have a crossover. And I guess right here I can mention that, because this came out in 1995 and it's called Spider-Man and Batman. And it is a J.M. DeMatteis book. But my other favorite that came around this time period, this was late 95, so the other one's early 96, is Batman and Captain America.
Ooh.
But that one is considered an Elseworlds. Now, I'm not fully sure why, but it is under the Elseworlds imprint.
Right.
So that's one of the honorable mentions, because that is a really good one, because you go against Joker and Red Skull. And one of like the greatest panels in that book is that Joker finds out that Red Skull is a Nazi, and Joker's mad at that. He thinks that's like the worst thing, and and he's like, I may be a criminal, but I'm an American criminal. And so that's just fun.
Yeah.
I think.
So Joker, does he team up with him? And
he does in the end, even though they don't really like each other anymore, but they do, and then Cap and Batman come together and defeat him. But I think that's so funny, considering Joker is who Joker is, but he's like, oh no, not Nazis.
I'm not that bad.
I'm not
a
bad.
Nazi.
This is the line that he says, I'm a lunatic, but I'm an American lunatic.
Yeah.
Nice.
So fun.
He did the Pledge of Allegiance right after that.
So that's not in our top 5, but that's one of my favorites.
That deserves an honorable mention.
It does. So you can definitely.
Anytime Joker's interests are aligned with Batman, it's worth noting.
It's worth noting, yeah. So that's actually a good book. But yes, we have Spider-Man and Batman that came out in 95, and Batman is in Gotham, and then Spider-Man comes and they first meet, and Batman is very territorial. He's like, he doesn't need help within his city. But then when they learn that Joker and Carnage are coming together and they're trying to take over the city, they have to team up, of course, and they defeat both Joker and Carnage, and they both kind of split up and go their separate ways. So it's more when Spider-Man comes into Gotham, Batman's like, hey, this is my place, leave me alone. But then they kind of already squash it. Spider-Man kind of apologizes, and because that's how Spidey is. He's not so dark and scary like maybe Judge Dredd is. He's just trying to help, and he's kind of the lighthearted character. So that actually goes well. And then they have another one that comes out in 97, so it's 2 years after the first one, and it's called Batman and Spider-Man. And Graham Nolan, did the illustrations, and DeMatteis comes back to write it, and now they have to go up against Kingpin and Ra's al Ghul, which Ra's al Ghul is one of my favorite villains.
What's his name, Mason?
Oh, You're going to put that clip in, aren't you?
He's got to do the clip.
The father's name was pronounced Raish, not Ras. A common mistake.
Raish. How cool. So they come together, and of course, usually when Raish Al Ghul is in the picture, he wants to wipe out the whole population, and Kingpin is along for the ride, and so Batman and Spider-Man come together and stop them before the world is destroyed. So that's more of a diabolical one, but like I said, Spider-Man and Batman, they work together fine. They both have different fighting styles. They both have different personalities, which is something that's really interesting because usually, at least what we've seen, Judge Dredd and Spawn, they're kind of dark, just like Batman. So it's nice to have that balance. And it's not the same, but it's kind of like when Batman and Superman are world's finest comics. They come together. They fight. I mean, Batman's a little bit more darker than Superman, who's always the bright light in any situation. So it's fun to see two kind of now iconic superheroes come together.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I wonder who's the bigger Boy Scout. Would it be Superman or Spider-Man?
I think just visually, Superman is more of the American icon.
Right.
But I think but I think it's between Superman and Spider-Man. Those two, I think, are one of the most well-known, like they're the most well-known heroes or the most popular. Even if people don't read comics or they barely see the movies or TV shows, they know Superman and they know Spider-Man. And now with all the popularity and all the hype, they know Batman after the last few years, especially with the films and the video games. I think those three, and I think we even talked about that when we were going over Ranker.com's lists and things like that. Those three are within at least the top 5, and it depends on the order. So, yeah, but I think Superman, in terms of just the American dream, he has like he's visualized with like the eagle on his arm, the American flag in the background, but I like Spider-Man's kind of real-life struggle with things. Nothing's really easy for him, so he's more relatable to people. Whereas a lot of people say Superman isn't relatable because he has all these powers and he's an alien from another planet, and it's not he's the ideal, so it's kind of hard at times to relate to him fully. But, yeah, those are, of course, definite icons. And Spider-Man's kind of the bright, funny side when it comes to him and Batman teaming up.
So on to number 1.
Right. So, we've gone through these, and I think this series or this one comic is important, and it kind of leads into the DC versus Marvel comics that came out in the mid-90s, where the publications came together and they had like a mini series spinoff where different characters from either side fought with one another. And in that one, Batman and Captain America square off, and the fans get to vote on who wins. And so that was in the mid-90s. And from that came the Amalgam series, which they had a DC character and a Marvel character, and they're combined to create this one, mixed character. And I guess for Batman, and it's sad that this didn't really go on much longer. It went for like one comic, and then it was a spinoff in an animated comic, and it's Batman and Wolverine, and they come together, and that's created by Larry Hama and Jim Balent and Ray McCarthy, and they create the character Logan Wayne, which is a mixture of it's a mixture of Batman and Wolverine.
That was a cool costume.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And that character first appeared in the Marvel vs. DC or DC vs. Marvel, depending on which one, but it's issue 3, and that came out in 96. And then that character, that combination became so popular, they had a one-shot, which is called Legends of the Dark Claw, and it was under that amalgam. I can hardly say that.
Amalgam?
How do you pronounce that?
I think it's amalgam.
Is it amalgam?
Right. What do you think, Mace?
What?
Amalgam.
It's amalgam? Okay.
Like an amalgamation.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's all right.
I don't want to pronounce things wrong. So
Well, how are you pronouncing it again?
Well, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So
You say it now. It's pronounced amalgam.
there you go. And so it gives a whole background to Logan Wayne, and of course there's always has to be some travesty if Batman is involved, even if it's half of him. He witnesses his parents' death when he's 5 or 6 years old, and he goes to live with his uncle, and his uncle himself is murdered as well, and then he has to grow up into kind of like the Air Force, but they put him through this program called the Weapon X Project, and it kind of makes him a super soldier in a sense, and he obtains like the metal in his bones, and he becomes a meta mutant in a way, just kind of like Wolverine does. And so he calls himself Dark Claw, and he has to go up against this other meta mutant that goes bad named Quinn. It's kind of a mixture of Joker and Harley in a way. The way that it looks, it's more of like a feminine Joker type. And her name is Quinn, but then he changes the name to Hyena. And so that becomes Dark Claw's greatest nemesis. And then the whole story revolves around him tracking down Hyena, and then he teams up with a kind of huntress character, and they have to stop Hyena. And the story is more memorable because of the way, like you said, the Dark Claw looks. It is the ultimate combination of Wolverine and the claws and the strength, whereas Batman gives it more of the backstory and the martial arts and everything. So I think that is probably, out of the 90s, came one of the most popular crossovers in a sense, and I personally like it. That's one of my favorite crossover issues to read, and the writing is pretty great. And then later, you actually get one more comic. It's a Dark Claw #1, and it's kind of drawn in a more animated series type, like the Batman animated series, because Ty Templeton writes it, and it has that same visual aesthetic of coming straight out of the animated series. And it's the Dark Claw has to battle called Lady Talia, which is a mixture between Talia and Lady Deathstroke. And they seek revenge on this character named Ra's Apocalypse, which is a mixture of Apocalypse and Ra's al Ghul. And so they have to fight these characters, but that's the last you really see of Dark Claw. You don't see this figure in any other comics afterwards, even though that's such a shame, because I think that Logan Wayne is still a fan favorite of the crossovers. So that's probably one of the most interesting ones, because you don't really have Batman versus Wolverine. You have Dark Claw, which that was really popular, like I said, in the mid-90s, but then it kind of dies out after that. And then, of course, later on, probably the last one, which is another honorable mention, is the Batman Daredevil crossovers.
Oh, thank you.
And those are interesting because their personalities, they clash. And if you think about it, Batman and Daredevil are kind of, in a way, on a similar level than other characters.
Yeah, no, they both, I mean, physically, they don't have superpowers. I
right.
mean, obviously, Daredevil has enhanced senses and radar vision, but he's a human.
Right.
With, he can bleed and he can't heal, and it's just like Batman. So you're right.
Right. And what's interesting is that they both figure out their civilian identities, because they both function the same charity ball, and yet they still are like, don't you ever come to my city again, and vice versa. And there's a lot of tension between them. But that also came out in 2 comics, and that's definitely something that's an honorable mention that I recommend.
Thank you.
And Adam recommends too.
I actually haven't read it in a while. I don't know if I would. I recommend any time you see an image of Daredevil and Batman in the same frame.
Right.
That I recommend.
Of
I'd have to
course.
check the story again. It's been a while. But if you are giving it an honorable mention, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, I think it's a good story, but I like all of the crossovers because you get to see Batman with these different people that you won't regularly. I mean, it's kind of special in a way.
Now, did Batman and Wolverine ever get together as actual individuals and
Like
not
separate?
an amalgam?
No.
Amalgamation?
Yeah, that's why I like it, because I love Wolverine. So I was kind of bummed because usually when they did with the DC versus Marvel versus DC, they had Captain America face off with Batman, probably because they matched, I suppose, their craft. They were kind of equal. And then, of course, the fans got to vote who won, and I'm pretty sure they gave it to Batman. But that book itself was pretty good. And one that I wanted to mention that we actually talked about on an earlier show is Batman versus Predator, because that came out in 2 books. And just the fact that it's based off of the movie franchise, you already know that Batman going up against Predator was a horrible fight because of the Predator. But I mentioned that in the Myth of the Batman God Complex episode. So if you want to hear more about that story, you should definitely check that out.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are 5 that we really talked about, but there are a lot of different other.
So which one do you want to see that hasn't been?
I still would like to see Batman and Iron Man.
Okay.
If
you did say that, but is there any other one?
Let's see.
Batman and Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, well, of course. And so that's why I'm so excited that it's coming out.
So what excites you about that, real quick?
Well, the fact that they're both so iconic. They're both like on the ends of like pop culture. And from what I read from the synopsis, that the Ninja Turtles need help from Batman. I think that's kind of fun. And I love the Ninja Turtles since I was younger. And it just seems like, the 2 childhood loves come together.
Well, I will be interested because, as you know, and as I've told you, I love the Ninja Turtles, the original run.
Right.
The all red headbands, the black and white comics, the ninjas. I mean, these guys cut people and they cussed every once in a while. They drank a beer here and there.
Right.
They were raw.
Right.
That's the kind of Ninja Turtles I want to see teaming up with Batman. I do not want to see Cowabunga dude Ninja Turtles teaming up with Batman.
And I don't think
multicolor headbands, initials on the belts. I don't want to see that. That's like when Scooby-Doo and his crew teamed up with Batman. Right? Kind of corny. I don't want to see that.
Hopefully, I don't think it'll be that corny. I think they might keep the aesthetics-wise with the different headbands.
Okay. Well, they are keeping different headbands.
Yeah, they're keeping the different headbands.
Skeptical.
But I don't think they'll be that out there or that campy.
Well, I promise to read it.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to read it,
and
too.
then if I have any complaints, I'll have to talk to James Tynion about it, right? I can't. I mean, what does it matter? I might as well go to the source.
Which, that's exciting that he's coming to the store.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Cool. So, anything else before we wrap up?
I wanted to do this episode because that issue is coming out, and it'll be out next week.
Okay.
The 9th, Nerd Wednesday, December 9th. And I always recommend Batman crossovers, whether I talk about them on the blog or anywhere, because it's a great way to look at Batman's interaction with other heroes. Because you see, like I said, you see him with Justice League, and you see him with the members of the Batman family, and you see him team up with people all the time, but it's always interesting to take someone who's from a completely different world, who has completely different personality and characteristics and see how Batman reacts to him. And I think every time you see the true Batman, you see the serious, dark Batman, you see the very territorial Batman, you see all of the qualities that you enjoy about the Batman stories, even though it's dealing with characters that aren't even a part of his universe. So I definitely recommend anytime you can get your hands on a crossover to do so. Yep.
All right. Well, we know that pretty soon people will be able to get in touch with us while we're live using the Voice app, VOIS. And how can they do it now, though? Get in touch with you. Oh,
get in touch with me. You can always email me at historyofthebatman@gmail.com. You can message me on Instagram.com/historyofthebatman. You can tweet me at twitter.com/histofthebatman. And you can like on Facebook at facebook.com/historyofthebatman. But I love all of the emails that I get from you guys who say that they love the show. So I thank you guys so much for listening each week. And if you have any comments, especially about this show, if you wanted to hear more about a particular crossover we didn't discuss, or if you have any suggestions for future shows, please email me at historyofthebatman@gmail.com.
Perfect. So I'd also like to tell the listeners, and you, Londyn, I don't know if you know about this, but right outside our studio now, at Meltdown, there is a new thing that's happening.
Right.
It's called XSN, and you can check it out at shopxsn.com. That's Meltdown's very own home shopping network.
Nice.
So it's kind of like QVC for geeks and nerds and all the kinds of stuff that we like, they're going to be selling.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so you can go on to shopxsn.com. You could watch it on YouTube, but directly on their website, you can buy the products that they're selling. There's a Batmobile animated series that's being sold by Fat Collectibles.
Nice.
And so what they do,
I need that.
you might. They're selling the Catwoman figure, the 6-inch Catwoman figure. Basically what they're doing is you go there, you can watch the shows online or watch the show online, and people will be unboxing items and telling you about products, and you get to buy it. And then you go on the website and actually do the purchase. It's pretty awesome.
That does sound awesome.
So listeners, check it out. I'm actually going to try to sell some of my personal collection on Shop
like
XSN.
What?
Well, I don't know if you know, but I actually produced a toy called the Shaolin Cowboy.
Okay.
Do you know the Shaolin Cowboy by Jeff Dar?
Yeah.
I did the toy. Under my company, Wednesday's Finest.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so I'll be selling some figures on XSN. I also have some old Hero Clicks figures, and
I'm gonna have to see that.
And then just anything else I can get out of my garage, because it's starting to accumulate, and I think if I walk in, it's going to fall on top of me. So I need to get that out there. But yeah, so check out Shop XSN.
Awesome.
All right. Listeners, thank you so much again for tuning in. This has been the History of the Batman with Londyn. I am Adam, a.k.a. Wednesday's Finest. And we are engineered and produced by Mason Booker out of Meltdown Comics and Collectibles in Hollywood, California. And we'd like to say stay tuned for next week's episode. We'll see you then. Londyn?
Peace, love, and Batman.